The crack of a wagon wheel hitting a stone jarred Olivia Foster awake, her head knocking against the wooden side panel as the mail coach lurched over the rutted trail. The vast Nebraska landscape stretched before her, endless waves of prairie grass shimmering under the merciless August sun of 1875. She clutched the letter in her pocket, the letter that had upended her life just 3 weeks prior. "Almost there, miss," the driver called from his perch. "Silver Creek's just beyond that ridge," Olivia nodded, though no one could see her. Her stomach churned with each rotation of the wheels, bringing her closer to a man she'd never met. A man who believed he was getting Catherine Foster, Olivia's beautiful, vivacious younger sister, as his mail-order bride. The deception hadn't been Olivia's idea. When typhoid fever had struck their Boston neighborhood, it had taken their parents and left Catherine bedridden for weeks. The recovery had been slow, and by the time the wedding date approached, Catherine had made a tearful confession. She had fallen in love with the doctor's son and couldn't bear to honor the agreement with some unknown cowboy in Nebraska territory. "You must go in my place," Catherine had pleaded, her blue eyes wide with desperation. "Just long enough to explain why I cannot come. Please, Olivia, I've already sent him my tintype, but it was taken at such a distance, and with my hat, surely he won't notice the difference." Foolishly, Olivia had agreed. At 23, with no prospects after devoting years to caring for her family, what did she have to lose? The coach rolled into Silver Creek just as the afternoon sun began its descent. It was hardly more than a dusty main street with a handful of buildings, a general store, a saloon, a small church, and what appeared to be a boarding house. "Foster Delivery," the driver called out, chuckling at his own joke as he set her trunk down. Olivia smoothed her travel-worn dress, wishing she'd had time to freshen up. Her chestnut hair, which had been neatly pinned that morning, now had rebellious strands escaping in every direction. She took a deep breath and stepped down from the coach. A tall figure separated from the shadows of the general store porch. Olivia's breath caught as he strode toward her with purpose, his long legs eating up the distance between them. Broad-shouldered and lean-hipped, he moved with the confidence of a man comfortable in his own skin. A well-worn Stetson cast his face in shadow until he stopped before her and removed it, revealing a strong jawline darkened by stubble and the most piercing blue eyes she had ever seen. "Miss Foster." His voice was deep, with a slight rasp that sent an unexpected shiver down her spine. "Yes," she answered, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm Olivia." She stopped, horrified at her slip. "I mean Catherine Foster." His eyes narrowed slightly, and for a terrible moment Olivia thought he would call her out on the lie. Instead, he extended his hand. "Samuel Irwin." "Welcome to Silver Creek." His palm was warm and calloused against hers, the handshake brief but firm. Up close, she could see he was older than she had initially thought, perhaps 30, with fine lines at the corners of his eyes and a weathered quality to his tanned skin. "I have rooms arranged for you at Mrs. Peterson's boarding house," he continued, gesturing to the 2-story building across the street. "I thought you might like to rest before we discuss arrangements." Olivia nodded gratefully. "Thank you, Mr. Irwin, that's very considerate." A hint of a smile touched his lips. "Most folks just call me Sam." He picked up her trunk as if it weighed nothing and led her across the dusty street. Olivia followed, acutely aware of the curious glances from the few townsfolk visible on the boardwalk. A woman exiting the general store stared openly, her expression unreadable. "Don't mind them," Sam said quietly. "New faces are rare enough to be an event around here." Mrs. Peterson proved to be a plump, cheerful widow who clucked over Olivia's travel-worn appearance and promptly showed her to a clean, simple room on the 2nd floor. "Supper's at 6 sharp," she informed Olivia, "and Mr. Irwin said he'd call for you at 7 if that suits." "Yes, thank you," Olivia replied, desperately wanting time to gather her thoughts. Once alone, she sank onto the narrow bed and buried her face in her hands. What had she been thinking? She'd come to let this man down gently, to explain why Catherine couldn't fulfill her promise. But something about Samuel Irwin's steady gaze made the rehearsed speech die in her throat. After washing away the travel dust, and changing into her second-best dress, a modest blue cotton that brought out the amber flecks in her hazel eyes, Olivia made her way downstairs for the promised meal. The dining room held only one other boarder, an elderly man who nodded politely before returning to his newspaper. Mrs. Peterson served a hearty stew with fresh baked bread, chattering all the while about Silver Creek and its inhabitants. Olivia learned that Sam Irwin owned one of the most prosperous cattle ranches in the area, that he'd built it from nothing after coming west as a young man, and that he was widely respected for his fair dealings. Never understood why a man like that needed to send away for a bride, Mrs. Peterson mused, refilling Olivia's water glass. But then, women are scarce out here, and he's kept to himself since his brother died 2 years back. Precisely at 7, a knock came at the front door. Olivia's heart hammered in her chest as she descended the stairs to find Sam waiting in the small parlor, hat in hand. He'd cleaned up, she noticed, his dark hair still damp at the temples, and he'd changed into a fresh shirt. "Miss Foster," he said with a slight nod. "I thought we might walk a bit if you're not too tired." The evening air had cooled considerably, bringing relief after the hot day. They strolled down the main street in silence until they reached the edge of town, where a small footbridge crossed a bubbling creek. Sam stopped at the center of the bridge, leaning against the railing to look at the water below. Olivia stood beside him, gathering her courage. "Mr. Irwin, you're not Catherine," he said quietly. Olivia froze, her mouth still open on the words she'd planned to say. How did you know?" He turned to face her, his expression unreadable in the fading light. "The tintype your sister sent showed a blonde. You have dark hair." Olivia's hand flew to her chestnut locks. "I should have realized. I'm so sorry for the deception. Why are you here instead of her?" His tone wasn't accusatory, merely curious. Olivia took a deep breath and told him everything about the typhoid, about Catherine's recovery and subsequent attachment to the doctor's son, about her own impulsive decision to come in Catherine's place to explain in person. "I couldn't bear for her to simply send a letter breaking her promise," Olivia finished. "It seemed too cowardly." Sam was silent for a long moment. "So you traveled over 1,000 miles to let me down gently." "It sounds rather foolish when you put it that way," Olivia admitted. To her surprise, he laughed, a rich, warm sound that transformed his serious face. "No one's ever gone to such lengths to spare my feelings before. I'm not sure whether to be flattered or concerned." His amusement was infectious, and Olivia found herself smiling despite her embarrassment. "A bit of both, perhaps." "Perhaps." His smile faded, replaced by something more contemplative. "What happens now? Will you return east immediately?" The question caught her off guard. In truth, Olivia hadn't thought beyond delivering her message. The family home in Boston had been sold to pay debts after her parents' deaths. Catherine was staying with the doctor's family, awaiting her wedding. There was nothing pulling Olivia back east except familiarity. I'm not certain," she admitted. Sam studied her face for a moment. "The stage doesn't come through again for 5 days. Stay until then at least. Get to know Silver Creek a little." "To what purpose, Mr. Irwin?" "Sam," he corrected gently. "And I'm not entirely sure, but I'd like the chance to find out." The days that followed took on a dreamlike quality for Olivia. Sam showed her around Silver Creek, introducing her to the townspeople not as Catherine but as Olivia Foster, with no explanation for the discrepancy. If people wondered, they didn't ask, at least not within her hearing. On the 3rd day, he took her to his ranch, 5 miles outside of town. The Double I Ranch was everything Mrs. Peterson had described and more, a sprawling property with a sturdy main house, well-maintained outbuildings, and pastures dotted with fat cattle. "It's beautiful," Olivia said sincerely as they sat on the front porch, sharing a simple lunch of bread, cheese, and apples. "It was a dirt-floor cabin and 50 acres when I started," Sam told her. "My brother Owen and I built it together, piece by piece." "Mrs. Peterson mentioned your brother passed away. I'm sorry." Sam nodded, his eyes distant. "Pneumonia, 2 winters ago. My parents died of typhoid last year," Olivia offered. "The grief, it changes you." "Yes, it does." His gaze returned to her face. "You understand then?" It wasn't a question, but Olivia answered anyway. I do. Something shifted between them in that moment, a recognition, a connection that went beyond their unusual circumstances. The fourth day brought a violent summer storm that kept Olivia confined to the boarding house. She spent the morning helping Mrs. Peterson bake pies, learning the older woman's tricks for perfect crust in the dry prairie air. By afternoon, she found herself standing at the window, watching the rain and wondering if Sam would brave the weather to visit as he had the previous days. Just as she was convincing herself that such thoughts were foolish, a mud-splattered figure on horseback appeared through the downpour. Her heart leapt as Sam dismounted and hurried to the boarding house door. Mrs. Peterson clucked disapprovingly at his sodden state but fetched towels without being asked. Once relatively dry, Sam joined Olivia in the small parlor, a wrapped package under his arm. "You shouldn't have come out in this weather," Olivia scolded, though she couldn't hide her pleasure at seeing him, "and miss our daily conversation. Never." He handed her the package. "Besides, I had a delivery to make." Curious, Olivia unwrapped the brown paper to reveal a collection of poetry by Elizabeth Barrett Browning. "You mentioned she was your favorite," Sam said, a hint of uncertainty in his voice. "I had Mr. Thomas at the general store order it specially from Omaha." Olivia ran her fingers over the embossed cover, deeply touched. "But how could he have received it so quickly?" Sam's ears reddened slightly. "I may have ordered it the day after you arrived. But that was before you knew I wasn't Catherine." "I knew you weren't the woman in the tintype the moment I saw you step off that coach," he admitted. "And I decided right then that I preferred the woman who actually came." Olivia's breath caught. "You never said anything?" "I wanted to understand why you'd come in her place. And then I wanted you to stay long enough to see if there might be something here worth staying for." The storm raged outside, but in the quiet parlor, something delicate and precious was taking root. They spent the afternoon reading poetry aloud to each other, their voices mingling with the sound of rain on the roof. When evening came and the storm showed no signs of abating, Mrs. Peterson insisted Sam stay for supper and take the vacant room rather than risk the flooded trails back to his ranch. The three of them sat around the dining table, laughing and sharing stories as if they'd known each other for years rather than days. Later, as Olivia prepared for bed, a soft knock came at her door. She opened it to find Sam standing in the hallway, a serious expression on his face. "The stage leaves tomorrow," he said without preamble. "Yes, I know, don't be on it." Olivia's heart thundered in her chest. "Sam, I'm not asking for promises," he continued quickly. "I know we've only just met, but I believe there's something real between us. Something worth exploring. What are you suggesting?" "Stay, not as my wife, not yet, but perhaps as Silver Creek school teacher. The town council's been trying to find one for months. A school teacher, but I have no formal training." "You told me you taught your sister and the neighborhood children after your mother fell ill. Mrs. Peterson says you're well-read and have a gentle way of explaining things." He took her hand. "Say yes, Olivia. Give us a chance to discover what this could become." Staring into his earnest blue eyes, Olivia felt the last of her reservations melting away. What was waiting for her in Boston? A life of drudgery as someone's companion or housekeeper. Here was a man offering her not just affection, but respect and the chance to build something meaningful. "Yes," she whispered, "I'll stay." The next morning, Olivia watched the stage rumble out of Silver Creek without her. Sam stood beside her, not touching but close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating from him. "No regrets?" he asked quietly. "None," she replied, and meant it. Summer faded into autumn, and Olivia threw herself into her new role as Silver Creek schoolteacher. The town council had hastily converted an unused storeroom behind the church into a classroom, and 12 children of varying ages now filed in each morning, eager to learn from Miss Foster. Sam called on her regularly, their courtship proceeding at a measured pace that both frustrated and delighted Olivia. There were buggy rides on Sunday afternoons, dinners at his ranch where he demonstrated surprising skill in the kitchen, and long conversations that stretched into the evening. He kissed her for the first time beneath the harvest moon, a gentle touch of lips that left her breathless and yearning for more. As winter approached, Silver Creek prepared for its annual Founders' Day celebration, a tradition that had begun 15 years earlier when the first settlers established the town. The festivities would include a dance, and excitement buzzed among Olivia's students. "Are you going to marry Mr. Irwin, Miss Foster?" 10-year-old Lucy Wallace asked bluntly during arithmetic lessons. The classroom erupted in giggles as Olivia felt heat rush to her cheeks. "That's hardly an appropriate question, Lucy. My ma says he looks at you the way Pa looked at her before they got hitched," the girl persisted. "Well, your mother should focus on her own affairs," Olivia replied primly, though the comment warmed her from the inside out. Now, back to long division. The night of the dance arrived with a dusting of early snow that turned Silver Creek into a scene from a Christmas card. The town hall, which doubled as courthouse and meeting place, had been transformed with pine boughs, ribbon, and dozens of lanterns casting a golden glow over the proceedings. Olivia wore her best dress, a deep green wool that Mrs. Peterson had helped her alter to better fit current fashions. She'd splurged on a new ribbon for her hair, and the effect must have been pleasing, judging by the way Sam's eyes widened when he came to escort her to the dance. "You look beautiful," he said simply, offering his arm. The hall was already crowded when they arrived, the local musicians tuning their instruments as townspeople chatted in excited groups. Several of Olivia's students ran up to greet her before being called back by indulgent parents. "They adore you," Sam observed. "The whole town does." "I've grown fond of them too," Olivia admitted. "I never expected to find such a sense of belonging here." The music started, and Sam led her onto the dance floor. He moved with surprising grace for a man who spent his days on horseback, guiding her through the steps of the waltz with confidence. "Where did a ranch hand learn to dance like this?" she teased. "My mother insisted both her sons be properly educated in all the social graces," he replied with a grin. "Said no son of hers would embarrass himself in polite company. She sounds formidable. She was. You would have liked her, I think, and she would have approved of you." The certainty in his voice touched something deep in Olivia's heart. As they moved together in perfect harmony, she realized with sudden clarity that she had fallen in love with Samuel Irwin, not just with his kindness or his integrity, but with the man himself, with all his quiet strength and unexpected tenderness. The evening passed in a blur of dancing and laughter. During a break in the music, Sam led her outside, where the air was crisp and stars blanketed the black velvet sky. "Cold?" he asked, noticing her slight shiver. "A little," she admitted. He shrugged out of his coat and draped it around her shoulders. The wool was warm from his body and carried his scent, a mix of sandalwood soap, leather, and something uniquely Sam. Better. Much. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, their breath forming small clouds in the night air. "I never thanked you," Sam said suddenly. "For what?" "For coming to Silver Creek. If your sister had kept her promise, I'd be married to the wrong woman right now." Olivia looked up at him, startled. "You can't know that. Catherine is not you," he interrupted gently. "And it's you I want, Olivia, only you." He reached into his pocket and withdrew a small velvet box. Olivia's breath caught as he opened it to reveal a delicate gold ring set with a single pearl surrounded by tiny diamonds. "This was my mother's," he said, his voice husky with emotion. "I'd be honored if you'd wear it as my wife." Tears blurred Olivia's vision. "Sam, are you certain?" "We've known each other such a short time." "I've been certain since the moment you stepped off that coach," he said firmly. "The only question is whether you feel the same." "I do," she whispered. "I love you, Samuel Irwin." His smile was radiant as he slipped the ring onto her finger. "And I love you, Olivia Foster, more than I thought possible." Their lips met in a kiss that promised a lifetime of tomorrows, the cold forgotten in the warmth they created together. They were married on Christmas Eve in Silver Creek's small church, with Mrs. Peterson sniffling happily in the front pew and all 12 of Olivia's students singing a slightly off-key rendition of "Joy to the World." Catherine sent a letter of congratulations, along with a hand-embroidered tablecloth as a wedding gift. Sam surprised Olivia with an addition to the ranch house, a proper library with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, already half filled with volumes he'd ordered from as far away as St. Louis. "For the teacher in my life," he explained as he showed her the room. "I thought you might continue lessons here for the children who live too far from town during the winter months." Olivia's heart swelled with love for this man who understood her so completely. "It's perfect. You're perfect." "Hardly," he laughed, pulling her into his arms. "But I promise to spend every day trying to be worthy of you." Spring came to the prairie in a riot of wildflowers, painting the land in vibrant hues after the stark white of winter. The Double I Ranch flourished under their joint care, with Olivia bringing her organizational skills to the business side of the operation, while Sam handled the practical aspects of ranching. On a warm May evening, they sat on the porch swing Sam had built as a wedding present, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. Olivia leaned against her husband's solid strength, her head resting on his shoulder. "I had a letter from Catherine today," she said. "She and Edward have welcomed a baby boy." "That's wonderful news," Sam replied, his arm tightening around her. "Are you sad to be missing it?" Olivia considered the question seriously. "I'll always love my sister, but no, my life is here now." She took his hand and placed it gently on her abdomen. "With you, and with whoever this little one turns out to be." Sam went completely still before turning to look at her, wonder dawning in his eyes. "Olivia, are you saying?" "Dr. Miller confirmed it yesterday," she said, unable to contain her smile any longer. "We'll have our own little one come winter." With a whoop of joy, Sam lifted her from the swing and spun her around, his laughter mingling with hers in the evening air. When he set her gently back on her feet, his eyes were suspiciously bright. "Thank you," he whispered, resting his forehead against hers. "For the baby, for everything, for taking your sister's place, for staying, for choosing me." Olivia raised a hand to his cheek, her heart so full it seemed impossible to contain all she felt for this man. "I think perhaps we chose each other." As the first stars appeared in the darkening sky, Sam kissed her with a tenderness that spoke of forever. Olivia Foster Irwin, once sent in her sister's place, had found her own destiny in the arms of a cowboy who had truly seen her from the very beginning. And in the years that followed, as their family grew and the Double I Ranch prospered, neither ever doubted that they had found in each other exactly what they were meant to have all along: a love as vast and enduring as the Nebraska sky above them.